Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Driving Markets. Just to remind you that we do have a podcast that goes out on Spotify. We've also got a webinar on the 28th of June and regular webinars. We've got classes and workshops on trading for beginners, for advanced, for options, for FX, crypto. We've got a whole array of mentoring group, and you can also follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, and obviously you can subscribe, share on YouTube. Okay, so in this particular session, we want to talk about where is the property or the real estate sector going, split into two parts. Obviously, you've got the residential and then you've got the commercial. Let's talk about residential. There are signs and indications, according to estate agents, or in the States as they call them, real estate agents, that are indicating where buyers are just not paying the prices, not willing to pay the asking price that was normally associated with property hype over the last few years, and now pulling back and negotiating a price on that particular property, mainly talking about residential at the moment. So I want to be absolutely clear, we're really focused on residential. So let's not be misunderstood here. So as far as the residential is concerned, split into two parts: that the actual purchase, and there's also the rentals, or the rental side, renting a property to live in. So let's talk about the purchase. So the purchase prices are not being met by the actual seller. So the buyers are coming in and negotiating properties down by as much as 10% or even a little bit more. And that is going to push prices down, because obviously every time a property is sold, then it's going to go on the land registry as that is the price. So you can see that the overall trend of the properties now is actually dropping. I wouldn't say sinking, but it's definitely rolled over. And you're going to have, over the next 12 months to 18 months, residential properties falling in price, not rising in price. Of course, you're going to have little pockets of support, little pockets of popularity where prices are going to fall less. So if we were to take, for example, the Miami, Florida area, where up a few months ago, there was barely 80 properties available. Now there's like 800 properties available for sale. And that is going to impact overall rentals, because the more properties available for sale means the more properties available for rental. So why are there more properties available for sale in the US, and why are there more properties available in the UK? So it goes as follows. So in the US, the main problem there, slightly different to the UK, is that anyone who took out a mortgage prior to December, January, February 22, you'd end up paying an interest rate that was much lower, fixed rate, much lower to what you're paying now. So if you take out a mortgage now, you're going to end up with a huge amount of interest payments to pay, because the interest rates have shot up dramatically over the last 3 years on a 30-year mortgage in the US. And that is what's causing the buyers essentially to move away from the market. And if they do come to buy a property, they're negotiating hard to buy that property. The sellers are selling the properties because unemployment is rising. The cost of living is simply too expensive. So they're looking to move away out of their existing mortgage or out of their existing area to a cheaper area in order to survive on a monthly basis. Remember, in the US, the savings are falling away, household debt is risen, and you've got credit card debt at all-time high, defaults at an all-time high. So that is having a significant influence and effect on the homeowners as well, because those homeowners, being the middle band of the middle class, or the middle class which is taxed the most by the government, are finding it very, very difficult to make ends meet under the present interest rate, inflation, and work environment. So you do have a situation whereby properties in the US, residential properties, are going to start sliding down. And why in the UK with the slide down? Because in the UK, as opposed to the US, the maximum mortgage you can get, I wouldn't say the maximum, but the average fixed rate is 5 years. You may have got a 10-year fixed. Now, as those 5-year fixed come to an end, the mortgage payments are going to shoot up on a monthly basis. That's going to cause a lot of hardship as far as families are concerned. So they could be looking to either sell the property and move to another area completely, so you get the same size property, but it's completely out of the vicinity, in order to save money, because if they're going to be paying 5, 6, 7% on interest to the bank or to the mortgage lender, that is going to cause specific hardship. So you're finding that there's more properties available simply because interest rates in the UK have now gone so high, as opposed to the US, where they're fixed for 30 years. In the UK, they're fixed for less, and those fixed rates are now coming to an end. Overall, also, the cost of living, inflation, and high interest rates has caused extreme stress on credit cards and loans. So people are finding it more and more difficult. And this is only talking at the moment about residential properties. And also rents looks like they've peaked both in the US and peaked also in the UK. So even tenants that are coming to renegotiate their contracts or end up getting a lower monthly rent on the new contract. So you could see rentals fall away, and that's going to cause a problem overall for landlords, because landlords are dependent on rising rent in order to make the property worthwhile as an investment. Moving on to commercial property. Well, commercial property in the US depends on where you're at, but even in Portland, Oregon, or you're on San Francisco, the West Coast, or even the East Coast, there's huge amounts of commercial property is available. And the problem is that availability lacks tenants. And there you've got a bigger problem, because the banks that have loaned the money out to these landlords aren't getting any interest rate payments in, or even worse, the landlords aren't getting the rental payments in order to pay the banks. So the rental payments have now ceased. So you've got a significant 25 to 30% drop in commercial property in the US. And that is going to spread across from East Coast, West Coast, over to or from the East Coast to the West Coast, including Midwest, including towns like Chicago, Ohio, etc., etc. So commercial property in the US is on the down. Now, commercial property in the UK is also on the down, but there you can get quick planning permission to convert that commercial property into a residential, and that would alleviate the residential tightness within the market, and also give the landlord significant income when renting it out as units to families on a residential basis, and save him in terms of the mortgage costs. Also, the banks would encourage that, because the banks would then have better security on a residential building as opposed to a commercial building. Where in the US, I'm not sure what the planning laws are, but to convert it from commercial to residential shouldn't be too difficult, and that would again alleviate the massive housing shortage there is across the board, which is mainly due to migrants, immigration, and lack of control of the borders in the US and also in the UK and Europe. So you've got big influx, cross-border population movement, which did put pressure on the property sector. But as prices, or as inflation is rising, it's going to rise. Inflation is going to continue rising. It's not going to come down, even though the official numbers show a slight fall. That's only because some of the components of the measure of inflation overall are significantly reduced, the overall head measure. But going forward, you'll see that inflation will rise. And we're probably going to go into a stagflation environment for the next 5 years, where you have high inflation and no growth. And the reason for that is quite simple. There's an abundance of money out there, abundance of debt, and the governments don't know how to get rid of the debt. And individuals now, or households, are in huge amounts of debt. And that is going to take money out of spending and paying off debt. So things like retail sales, consumer spending will fall. As we saw yesterday with the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, we saw clearly that sentiment report came in negatively at 65.6, expected to come in at 72. And also the view of the consumer as regards inflation is 5.3%, but I think we're going to go more like to 8-9%. So I see inflation bottom out in the UK, and has already bottomed out as far as the US is concerned, and you probably see the cycle move up. In order to track that, you could look at bond yields, and you see the bond market makers are looking to, as a future inflation measure based on interest rates, as a rising curve, as not as a falling curve as such. So going back to residential and commercial, they're both going to go through a particularly hard time, and you'll see both of them fall off. Probably commercial more than residential, but you could see a 20%, 22% over the next 18 months gradual fall in residential properties. Remember, you can subscribe, you can share, you can follow me on Instagram, follow me on X, you can follow me on TikTok. We also run seminars, courses, workshops, and we've got some webinars that you can join in order to help you become fully informed. And we have a podcast also on Spotify. This is Mayor Valensky with Driving Markets. Hope you enjoy the channel. Have a good day.